When I make a word art monogram, I first set my letters to the size and the shape that I want the finished monogram to be. And I do start with the alphabet letters. And in Wacom, I used, I think it was serif number 4 to create this, and then manipulated the letters so the O was slightly larger and in the center um, for the family name. And so once I had everything set and I had added the pattern, this is one that I designed, and then tweaked it to fit the proportions of the letters that I made. Then I wanted to turn it into an applique, but I needed to have this completely set to the shape that I needed before I jumped in. So once I had this was still in the form of just a plain tatami that had been, there were no breaks. It was just a solid tatami before I applied the pattern. And then I used the simple offsets to set in my um, placement stitch that goes down on the fabric first, and then my tack down stitch, and the machine will stop when it changes colors so that I can trim the fabric away. I had created an alphabet that was houndstooth, uh, that was no fabric was involved. It is merely, well, it's completely all stitches, so that you get the illusion that you've gone to the trouble of applique, um, with without the added steps. But this one happens to be for my sister, so uh, I'll go to great lengths to make hers a little bit more special. So I wanted to introduce another color. The shirt will be a dark color. I wanted to bring in a white applique, and then the houndstooth and satin stitch to sit on top of that. So when this runs, there's your placement stitch. Let's slow this down. It's really going after it. And I usually set this so that I see the stops, so that I know what my machine is going to need to do to create this. We can go faster than that. So that's our placement. From this point, I would lay down my piece of white fabric. There's no need to draw the placement for the inside because the fabric is just going to be one piece that covers everything. So when we have the fabric set down in place, then I'll start the tack down. For this one, this is another motif run that I've created so that it gives me a nice clean cut on the edges. Sometimes a zigzag, it's hard to get close enough. So this running stitch stitches on the edge, bites into the fabric, and runs along the edge. And we'll continue. So each time the computer is waiting for me to hit the go button again, um, because it's doing a trim at that point. So I would have my placement line stitch, uh, use fine sharp scissors. I usually like to use a something that I would use in lace making. They're very fine, and I can get really close to the edge. And I would trim away all of the excess and all of the top. Now, an idea occurred to me. If I'm working on a sweater, which is what I have for this monogram, um, I want to be careful not to nick the knit texture while I'm cutting this out. So I think when I do this one, I'm actually going to lay down a piece of wash away stabilizer um, before I start adding any of my additional fabrics. So the stabilizer is going to be hooped with just the sweater and a cutaway stabilizer on the back. But that's going to prevent my scissors from accidentally nicking the texture of the knit. Okay, we'll continue. So everything's tacked down and I've trimmed. Now it will begin the houndstooth pattern that I created. And because I had made this let's get this at 0. Will it let me? Well, now. Because I had created a solid fill, just a plain tatami fill to do this before I applied my houndstooth, it's very uniform. And as a final stitch, this will be my third color of the project. And that will be the cover stitch for the applique. Now, the other font that I have created that is for sale, you can do this with it finished if you use the font, that font, as an ESA, which goes into Wilcom or Hatch, or a KDC, which will go into Bernina software or Hatch software. And then you can use that font just like you would any built-in font. But because I wanted a different shape to these letters, and I was using a different font than the houndstooth pattern has, you have to think ahead. You're almost working in reverse sometimes when you're doing embroidery. Thanks for watching.